What's up, everyone? Well, what we got here is probably one of the coolest cars ever made. 1959 Chevy El Camino. And I think we got the rustiest one on YouTube. And well, my job now is to get this thing back on the road. That's right, I said the rustiest El Camino on YouTube. Now I can't guarantee that, but show me another one that's as rusty as this that's getting put back on the road. Now, if you've been following along, you know that we've already gone through and rebuilt and refurbished the whole suspension. All brand new ball joints and bushings, all brand new brakes, brake lines. And then we moved on to the motor. We got this old Chevy 350 running. We're gonna put this thing back together and fire it up. Let's go. Now, in the last video, we attempted to put on a new flywheel, one that I got brand new from Jegs. I purchased that almost 5 years ago, but it was still brand new in the box. And when I pulled it out of the box, I found that it had a big crack. It looked like a manufacturing flaw, not a crack that developed in shipping or in storage or anything. Well, I called Jegs to try to get a return. Wasn't happening. I bought that 5 years before, and they have a 90-day return policy. Even the manufacturer only has a 1-year return policy. So unfortunately, I'm stuck with a flywheel that's no good. Well, what I did was went ahead and ordered another one and had it shipped here. Let me show you. All right, so here it is. Now, I had it overnighted, so it only took actually 2 days to get here. But I've already inspected it, and I don't see any cracks or flaws in this one. Now, with all the trouble that we had from Jegs, I just didn't feel right ordering another one from them. So I ordered this one from Summit. We got the 153 tooth smaller flywheel, and notice that internally balanced. This is for an internally balanced motor. Somebody was pointing that out, wanting to make sure, and I double checked. A 70s 350 is internally balanced. I know I ran a 400 small block for a while in the Nova, and it was externally balanced. But yeah, so this should all work out. This should be the right one. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Now, I also picked up a brand new starter. Now, I got this from a gentleman off a marketplace. Spacing his name, but thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Now, this was a AC Delco, brand new in the box. Well, brand new, remanufactured. But this is the older style. He had it listed as a 1957 starter, but I believe it's the same one as the 59. Of course, this is the one that we had that came with it, and it is locked up and rusted. And so I knew that this was gonna need to be rebuilt at the minimum. It might even be beyond that. So luckily I went and got this one from the gentleman off the marketplace. I think this one should bolt right in there, and this is a good quality starter. So that's, and what, 65 bucks is what he charged me. I think it would cost a lot more if I was to try to buy this new offline. So thank you, man. Now we got to bolt up that flywheel to this motor, and I'm coming up with some questions here. Now, when I bought that flywheel from Jegs, they sent me this shim or spacer. It made me question if I needed that or not. So I started doing some research, and most of the research says that you only need to shim a flywheel if it's been resurfaced and you've lost that material and you need to move it back towards the transmission again a little bit. So I don't think I need it, but then, you know, somewhere I did read that possibly doing this swap that you may need a shim in the flywheel because the 20-year difference between the transmission and this motor. So there might be a little bit of a difference there. And then really the only way to find out is once you get it all bolted up and get the starter in there, and then find out if it's the right spacing or not. I know you can shim a starter to move it away from the flywheel, but the only way to get that flywheel closer to the starter, if that's what it needs, is to shim that flywheel. And I don't really know. So I'm almost thinking about mocking this all up. I've got the bell housing here. So I might throw the flywheel on here, get the bell housing on there, mount the starter, and then see if that's got the right clearances. I'd rather do that now before we put all the Loctite and torque it all down and get it all installed in the car. Might as well mock it up a little bit and see if that all fits. Maybe I'll even hook up the battery and try to crank it a few times, make sure that all sounds right. I just really hate to get it all together and have to pull it all back apart again. So I'm going to set you up on the tripod and we're going to give that a try. Alright. Well, let's get this on here. There. And I picked up some new flywheel bolts, ARP flywheel bolts. You know, the other flex plate bolts are way shorter, and with the thicker flywheel, you got to get the flywheel bolts. Now I'm putting these in here dry, no thread locker. We're just doing this for mock-up. I'm not even going to torque them down. I'm just going to tighten it up here, and we'll throw the bell housing on, and then we'll put that starter on and see how that all fits. There. Now I realize I'm kind of short on the bell housing bolts. I only got a couple that are the right size. The rest they're a little short. It'll be enough to mock it up, but I'm going to have to pick up the right size. Alright, that's on there. Alright, let's try to get this starter on here. Mount this on here while it's all swinging. Well, this is nice that we're able to use this older style bell housing mounted starter. Because if you guys remember, this block was broken and somebody had welded on this acorn nut to get that starter, the block style starter, and we were having trouble with it lining up and it was not working right. So thankfully, we get to use this one. This bolt's just a little too long to get started in here. I'll have to find a shorter one. Alright. Come on. There we go. Alright, well, we got it on there. Now, I'm going to have to get a flashlight and kind of look in here, try to see. Guys, there's an issue. Look at the starter teeth and the flywheel teeth are almost an inch away from each other. I was under the impression I needed this smaller 153 tooth flywheel for this bell housing and transmission, but there's no way that starter's an inch away from the flywheel. It's making it look like I need the larger flywheel in here. I mean, do I not even need the smaller 152 or 153 tooth flywheel? I mean, I've got the larger 160 some tooth flywheel, but I've been on a mission to get the smaller one because I was told this is what I needed. Now I'm not even sure. I guess I'm gonna have to look into this a little bit. Why is it always harder than it should be? Well, guys, we have an issue. or I've kind of made a mistake.
I can't do it. Why do you even want me?
The biggest thing I have to learn is to ask for help. That's the biggest thing.
I don't know why, but 5 years ago when I started ordering these parts, I had it in my mind that I needed the smaller 153 tooth flywheel. And so I purchased that and the pressure plate and the clutch. And this whole time I've been thinking that's what I needed in here. I was wrong. With the stock bell housing and that starter mounted setup there, you need the 168 tooth flywheel and the larger 11-inch clutch. If I had the larger setup in there, then this bell housing and this new starter would all work. But since I've got the smaller 153 tooth flywheel now and clutch and pressure plate, I can't use bell housing mount for the starter. I'd have to use a block mounted starter. And I can get a 153 tooth block mounted starter, but do you remember how those mounting holes were all jacked up for the starter there? That was the whole reason we were excited about using this bell housing mounting setup for the starter, but apparently we're not going to be able to unless we use the larger 168 tooth flywheel and get a larger pressure plate and clutch for this. And I just have to decide which route I want to go. Do I want to use this bell housing with that starter mount setup and use this new starter I got and then just swap out the pressure plate and flywheel and all that? I've got a 168 tooth flywheel. I would just need to get a new pressure plate and clutch setup. Or do we use this 153 tooth flywheel, clutch and pressure plate that I have and just get a block mounted 153 tooth starter and hope for those mounting holes work? Remember when we put that starter in, it was grinding, and I mean, we could maybe try to shim it and try to make it work. I just have to think about it. Okay, I made a decision. Then we're gonna ditch that smaller flywheel, and by ditch I mean return it and get as much back as we can. But we're gonna do away with the smaller flywheel and the clutch and pressure plate, and we're gonna run the 168 tooth, the larger flywheel. I've already got a brand new one. We'll get that on there. And I just have to order a new clutch and pressure plate, which I already called Napa and they got it on the shelf. I'll have to get that when I go to town tonight for work. So I'll have to pick that up, and then tomorrow we'll continue with getting that other flywheel on here. That way we get the transmission mated up and get this thing in here. But that gives me a little bit of time to kind of talk about some of the other things that we're gonna have to address pretty quickly here. Stuff like the driveline. Let's take a look at it. Here we go. It's laying on the ground here, but as you can see, I've been soaking down the U-joints and the bolts and stuff. I've got a new carrier bearing and also new U-joints, but only two. I don't know why I didn't get the third one. So I'm gonna have to put that on that Napa order and see if I can get a third one. So, but that's what we're gonna have to do, you know, pretty quickly as well, is get these U-joints knocked apart and replaced with new ones. And then there's a bolt in here, and I've been soaking it, but we have to get this to separate this and get the carrier bearing off of here, which I got a new one as well. So that's something we need to address. Hopefully it comes apart easy enough and doesn't fight me too much. And another major thing that we're gonna have to deal with soon is this core support. Now, I got it mostly all stripped down, but over here on the passenger side where the battery tray is, you could see how bad this is. And all the ones I've seen for sale that are used look the same way, and they're still hundreds of dollars. But right here under the battery tray, pretty much all rotted away. The rest is doable, but this is pretty rough. Now, I'm not much of a metal fabricator. I'm gonna reach out to a friend of mine, Oliver, at Trad Rod and Customs, and see if he can't help me with this. I know he's gotten really good at metal fabrication, and you know, this is a little challenging, but I think he could really help me out here. So I'm gonna reach out and see if he can give me a hand and see if this is even savable. Well, now, since I'm out here showing you some things, let me show you the wheels and tires I just picked up. Now, we're on a super tight budget, so they're nothing special or crazy, but if you remember, I was talking about wanting to kind of play an homage to the previous owner of this car, and what he had on here was black Steelies with baby moons. So that's kind of what I wanted to get, so we picked up these. Just a set of Steelies with white walls, and you know, we're gonna repaint these wheels gloss black and run the the Baby Moon hubcap, and we'll clean these up, and they're pretty brand new, and like I was saying, I couldn't have passed up the price. They were a steal. So I just need to pick up a set of hubcaps, some Baby Moons. I think they measure, what, 10 and a quarter, or 10 and an eighth inch Baby Moons, and they should pop right on here. And we'll probably do a gloss black paint job on them. But yeah, I think those will look good on the El Camino. You know, we're pretty much scraping by. We're at the end of the budget we have for this build, so we're gonna take any deal we can. And if money wasn't an option, what I'd really like to get is a set of 15x7 reverse Supremes with white walls. Classic lowrider rims. You don't find those popping up used very often, and a set of new ones ain't cheap. And I'll take a look at some of the stuff that showed up. We've got most of it. There's still a few things in the mail, but you know, the new mounts. This is the U-joints. We got 2. I probably need to pick up a 3rd one, and that carrier bearing. And we got the new hardware to mount that front radiator support once we get that all repaired. And new battery box. I mean, there's so much little stuff in here. Like, well, this is a new ignition and lock set. Thinking, with some of your advice, is I could probably get new keys made for the original lock and doors. I pull out the glove box lock and take that in and have that keyed. And if it hasn't been switched around too much, it should be the same key for the ignition and the doors, I believe. But that's something we need to look at. Also, the hardware for those headlight buckets, if you remember how bad those are. I'm also going to see if Oliver can help me with those. They were pretty far gone, but I think he can pull some miracles. And we got all the new clips and springs and hardware for those. And speaking of clips, this is all the side molding clips. Fender molding clips, complete side molding clips. This was like, alone was like $150 just for that bag. I mean, we got the front molding clips, fin clips. I mean, there was probably over $500 just in clips for this car. Come to find out, there's some universal ones I could probably use, but I've been buying all the original style. Also got a complete front end hardware kit. Most of this I think is usable. Some of it may not be, but all nuts and bolts for that to put that whole front end back together. I also find a new U-bolts as well for that rear end. And then these are also a bunch of miscellaneous bags of original hardware, all the J-nuts and the proper pointed bolts and what have you. Hardware for those headlights, everything, you know, dust caps. Here's we got the Z-bar and pivot ball stud kit. This is the pivot ball stud kit for the Z-bar that just showed up. That stuff was missing from the El Camino when I got it. It's still got the bracket on the frame, which then I'll install the frame side pivot ball, and then the Z-bar connects over to the motor where the block mounted pivot ball is, which I think I got 2 of those. I got another one here as well. So I have to get that all laid out. I have most of the clutch rods and everything in there still, so that should all come together. You know, new headlight switch, new marker light lenses. But yeah, I think that's about the last of the little odds and ends that I needed to pull this whole El Camino back together, hopefully. Now, as all of you know, there's plenty of unforeseen speed bumps you find along the way, and I think we're finding every single one on this project. But we're inching our way there closer and closer every day, chipping away, getting this car back on the road. And, you know, we've started with just about the rustiest or the roughest one you could, and we're putting together a bunch of mismatched parts that were gathered by somebody else that I don't even know. This motor and bell housing and the car, everything that I purchased from somebody was already just a bunch of mismatched stuff been collected together. So we're trying to make sense of it all, and we're stumbling our way through it. But, you know, most of the stuff that I've learned along the way is by trial and error. So this ain't nothing new for me. Now, I wanted to say thank you again to everybody that's helped me with this build along the way. Of course, Oliver at Trad Rod and Customs has been helping me, and hopefully he's going to work his magic on that front radiator core support and those headlight buckets and see if we can't get those to be saved. And Jonathan Wade over at Handmade Hooligan. I'm going to reach out to him and see if he can't help me with the airbag system on this. I know he's installed a few of them. If you guys remember his sweet car, I'm going to see if he can't give me a hand. I think he's the one to talk to when it comes to an airbag system, especially on an old Chevy. So thank you to him and the rest of the Hooligans Car Club. They're throwing the huge 4th annual Shakedown, the 2-day car show and cruise event coming up, which for me is the pinnacle of the summer, because that's where I'm going to hopefully unveil this car. The plan is to be out there in that Friday night cruise with the 59 El Camino, so really looking forward to that. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Now give me a few days for the next one. We'll get that larger flywheel mounted on there and that new 11-inch pressure plate and clutch installed. And we'll get the transmission on there and get this thing installed in the car. Then I get that driveline refurbished and get it installed in the car, and we'll have the whole drivetrain ready to go and installed. And after that, we could work on that core support, getting that installed and getting that whole front end put back on. That way we could have the new radiator in it and get this thing hooked up to a cooling system and go through the braking procedure on that motor, and then hopefully we'll be ready for that test drive. And also quickly, I wanted to give a shout out to Old Car Alley. You got to check out his channel. Now he's got the most beautiful 59 Chevy. The thing is gorgeous, and he's owned it since he was a kid. You got to go there, check out his channel, hear his story, and check out his car. He does a lot of videos, how-to videos on certain procedures of maintenance and repair on 59 Chevy. So I've had to refer to his videos quite often for reference to figure out how things go back together. So give him a shout out. Go check out Old Car Alley. All right, I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace.